Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to do this. Anytime I can tell a little bit of the Divvy story and then connect with founders that are going through their own journey, I'm in. I'm from Seattle. I grew up in Redmond, Washington. Hopefully that rings a bell to a few people. I grew up in Redmond before Microsoft was there, and I was born before Microsoft was there, and I saw our little town go from nothing to Microsoft, Amazon, Costco, Nintendo. So I've seen what like crazy growth does to an area, and I love businesses that have that type of value and grow. And so, kind of always had my mind on entrepreneurship. I love sports. You can't. I blurted out, but these are fun pictures of sporting events I've been to. Uh, yeah, I have a family, 4 kids, 7 to 14. So we're in the thick of everything. I've been married for 18 years, and happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for the intro, Alex. Lots of different questions that I know our team will have and everyone through the journey. But I think as you kind of walk through, feel free to share your screen whenever you're ready. A lot of what we'll kind of talk about here today to set the stage will be focused on, actionable steps as Alex grew Divvy and understanding the acquisition, but also what that looks like, right? We talk a lot of people after the exit, how they kind of find not necessarily the purpose, but what that next adventure is when you kind of commit so much of your time and energy, heads down to building that. And so what that looked like, obviously you've got a few different projects now. So hearing your story as to how you evaluated that would certainly be a great asset. So we'll let you take it through.
Awesome. For everyone that's here, I'm gonna talk, I think, for the first 15, 20, pretty much in a presentation style. But if you have questions, throw them in the chat, and Brian and Tega will let me know, and we'll talk through it. But go ahead and like stop me or interrupt me. Let's try to make this a back and forth. But at the end, we'll definitely have time for us to go through and answer all your questions. So I'll start, but feel free to ask questions as we go. Okay, so here's how I'm gonna kind of run this presentation. I'm going to talk to you about obviously Divvy. I'm really proud of the success that we had. We'll talk a little bit about that story, but we're going to be covering the lessons I learned while becoming a unicorn, like while building it, and then things that you can do specifically in your journey to become a unicorn. And then we're going to talk about what happens after you become a unicorn. And hopefully everyone can grab a few things out of here that will be helpful. I kind of preface this, I'll make it quick, but I was born in Seattle, family of entrepreneurs, tried a bunch of businesses in high school and college and failed a lot and had some moderate successes, but a lot of failures. I went to BYU here in Utah. I live in Utah now. And, when I left college, I got a geography degree. So I'm super smart. It's like a Harvard Law degree. You haven't heard of it, but it's basically the same. So I got a geography degree, did nothing with that degree ever, and I then went into work for a bunch of different people. And I honestly, in my 20s, I just took jobs with really smart people that I wanted to shadow and learn from. And that's what we did. And then we'll get into Divvy here. 16. So we started Divvy February. My partner came to my house and said, Alex, I have an idea, which we've all heard those words. If you're a founder or an entrepreneur, you kind of remember that time where that like bug got in your head and you're like, all right, I have an idea. So our initial idea, we basically work for these small businesses and we're building our own small businesses. And we realized that people were swiping their credit cards first and asking for forgiveness later. And we're like, man, there's gotta be a better way. So we ended up, getting together and saying, hey, what can we do about this? And for us, Venmo and Apple Pay were just coming onto the scene in 2016. And so we thought this was the right time where new technologies was going to be approached where, for example, before you buy something for work, you could see how much was on your phone, how much budget you had left. And, that was our big aha moment. What's crazy, and this is something that might be different for a lot of people, from the first meeting we ever had, that is what we talked about. And we never changed it. We didn't pivot. We didn't kind of do something different. Like we literally from the first meeting we ever had, it was like, this is what we're doing. And obviously there's, you get better at certain elements and we learned a thing or two along the way. We ended up launching our company in August. We quit our jobs. We hired developers and it was one of the most exciting times of my life. And it's kind of that buildup of February through August were so exciting. And then August through the fall, we were supposed to launch January of 2017. But as you see, there's an 8 on there. So It took us a full year longer than we thought to build the product. And there's a lot of stories in there, which we'll cover maybe one or two. So it took us 2 years to build the product. And then fundamentally, when we went to market, we did have a lot of scaling success and went from zero to about 400 million in revenue in like 4.5, 5 years. So we did have a decent amount of growth, which was exciting. And then we sold to Bill.com for 2.5, as was said earlier. And I left the day after we sold. So we're going to talk a little bit about that experience and what that felt like for me.
And then Alex, quick question for you on that slide too, because also this was submitted in and figured it was good timing. So someone asked, did you know when you eventually sold to Bill, was that the idea to have an exit, early on, or was that something that as you saw this success and your company scaled, that was something like, hey, like we should explore this more versus running this, for 10, 20 years?
Yeah, it's actually I do venture capital now. So I ask this question all the time. It's kind of a funny concept, but I don't think people really think about it. But every business ends in three ways, really two, but three. And the first way is it goes out of business. Very common. A lot of companies just don't make it at some point. Totally get it. It happens all the time. Okay, they go out of business. The second one is that they go public. I know that that's not ending it, but when you start a company, that is a version of like an end. So you go public. And the third one is you get bought. Now, the fourth one is it cash flows and you hold on to it for a long time, but until one of the first three happens, you go out of business, get bought, or go public, right? But when you start a company, that's the inevitable milestone. Blake and I never wanted to be public CEOs. Well, sorry, Blake was CEO, but public. We didn't want to have a public company. We didn't want to operate in that world. So frankly, Brian, we made a ton of decisions that were, I would say, short term because we were not planning on doing this for 20 to 30 years. And in many instances, that was a mistake on our part. We could have done things differently and we would have built things differently if we were written for the long term, but we weren't. And we kind of knew that even from the early stages. So we weren't like desperate to sell, but we were not shy from finding the right partner, and we were glad when we found them. So I would say we knew we weren't going to be public. We eventually wanted to get bought, and that was always kind of the case.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing.
All right. This is our unicorn. I drew this up last night. It took me a while, but we made it happen. Unicorn lessons I learned while building a unicorn. So the first one, I have this joke where I would go home. My wife, she's amazing. She's like always been on the journey with me, and I've been through a fair amount of roller coasters with these startups. And I'd walk in the door. This is like before we have a product, and I'd like come home, and I'd be like, "Babe, we have done it. We've built the freaking machine. Like I know it. This thing's going to be $1 billion." And then the next day I'd come home and I'd be like, it's over. Like legitimately, like I'm on LinkedIn refreshing and like sending out resumes because it's so dramatic sometimes. Like in a startup, it can feel like you have conquered the world and solved every problem. And the next day, it can feel like it is all over and the world is just like on top of your shoulders. And it's actually quite emotionally difficult for a lot of people to handle. My saying, I would say at Divvy is just things are never as good as they seem and they're never as bad as they seem. And what I would always want people to know and what I would tell you right now is when you get a big win, celebrate it. But in the back of your mind, know it's not going to last forever. It's not that good. There's things to solve. There's going to be something coming. So just don't get over your skis like it's all solved. That'll never take place. But at the same time, when life is like, and I might have, yeah, okay. When it seems like the world is coming to an end, and I'm going to share a story here, there is hope. There is another day. You will get through it if you're willing to put through the work and the effort and hold on. And so, for example, I'll give you one high, one low, and then we'll keep going for time. Um, we had a meeting with U.S. Bank. They're our first bank partners, and for those that don't understand what Divvy is, like as a credit card, we need a bank partner. It's not like we hope to have a bank partner. And we meet with them. We go to Minneapolis. We go to their headquarters. We're in one of their main conference rooms. We have all these suits come in. We're in like t-shirts, but we're there. We don't even have a product, but we have clickable prototypes, and we have like 8 people from fairly high up in the U.S. Bank that come in. And for an hour and a half, Blake and I, these nobodies from Utah who've raised no money, walk into that office, and we had them eating out of the palm of our hand. We knew what the future of banking looked like, and they were watching. And we were just, it was amazing. Like the feeling we had, we left that office. That's when we decided to fully quit our jobs and like raise the money. We just knew it. We knew we had something big. Fast forward 3 months, we'd quit our jobs, we'd raise some money, we'd hire developers, and we'd get an email from US Bank that says it's over. Um, Really, what they said was, "Hey, you guys can't issue credit cards. You have to issue it on our bank, on our account, and then they can come into your platform." But for all intents and purposes, that was never going to happen, and it was over. And Blake and I sat there. Where I remember, like, we're sitting in his office, and we're just devastated because it's like, guys, if without them, we have nothing. We've raised money, we've spent money, we have employees. We're looking out into our office, and we're like, should we just go tell them to go home? Should we give back the money? Because like we have nothing without this US Bank agreement. So at what we thought was this amazing opportunity on a Thursday afternoon was just emailed to us. It is over. And it was really devastating. And we actually had this type of thing happen a handful of times where you think it is legitimately the end of the road. We ended up, saying, don't say anything to the team. Let's take it through the weekend. Let's solve some stuff. And by Monday of next week, we were on planes to the East Coast trying to find another bank partner, and we ended up finding one. Um, that type of life is very, very common in the life of an entrepreneur. All right. This might sound very cliche, but I want to. Let me see if I have the next thing. No. Okay, I'm going to explain. Has anyone read Boys in the Boat? This is a picture from Boys in the Boat. Brian, okay, Brian, Brian, I'll talk to you. You've read it. So, do you remember when you read the book, not necessarily the movie, in the book, there's a lot of like the main character, he's like, he's rowing, he's not rowing, he's in the back, he's in the front. Like they're trying to figure out what's the right chemistry, what's the right team to get the fastest speed. And they're constantly changing it. It wasn't just like, this is my character. So it was like, there was an emotion to who should be on the boat, who shouldn't. And I think a startup is very, very similar. If you don't have a great team that you've optimized, and it might require some very tough decisions. And frankly, one of the toughest decisions you might not understand you need to make is firing yourself in the role. You might think you're the guy in the front of the boat or the guy in the back of the boat or the guy yelling in the boat. But sometimes you need to fire yourself and realize you're not the person to do that job. You need to do another job. And that's actually quite difficult as a founder, but it's the only way to be successful. So, one of the things we learned is we went and found amazing people that had the playbook. What I mean by that, and I think I call it the car theory. We want to go from 10 million to 100 million. So we wrote up on a board 10 companies that we knew went from 10 million to 100 million. And we said, boom, 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 boom. And we're like, all right, let's go recruit their revenue team. And the first thing we would do was cross off the number one person. Any ideas why we'd cross off the number one person and we wouldn't want the number one person from another team that's gone from 10 to 100? Feel free to comment, or I'll just keep speaking, which I'm happy to do.
My initial thought is like it's like a lot of processes. And so what's worked with one team isn't inherently going to work with another team, or what, you want to kind of inject fresh ideas into that process. And so maybe
So
that's my initial thought.
you think the guy who's number one at the other company, that they just kind of too rigid? They're not gonna flex to new ideas.
Yeah, I think it's like I've done it this way. Yeah, or also these cabinets are too expensive. I've done it this way. Why do I need to change? Right, it's worked for me.
So it's a Brian. I'm gonna change a little bit of what you said, but I agree with you. And Gavin, I think you're spot on too. So the first thing is, if someone's done it and they've gone from 10 to 100, there's ego, there's cost, they've been paid, there's entitlement. They're like, guys, like I've done it, right? They're not as eager as they once were. They're like, you can pay me to come, but they're not like chomping at the bit to prove themselves. But you know who is chomping at the bit? Number two, number three, number four. So our point was they had to have been in the car. They had to have seen the road or the playbook. They knew what it looked like. And yes, Brian, they're not going to do the exact same processes, but actually to a degree, I'm like, I'm hiring you because I want to know what processes you had in place. And we'll put in some new plays, because part of number 2, 3, or 4, they're like, hey, we did it this way. Here's what the playbook looks like, but I actually have a new play. And I really want to tweak this element. I want to do it this way. So they're going to put their own spin on it. But you want someone who's hungry, who's not as expensive, but yet they've seen the playbook. And for us, it was a grand slam. That was a great way for us to recruit, and it helped us put together a team that absolutely made Divvy what it was today, or what it is today, because it wasn't just me by any means. And that's not me just saying like some humble statement. That's me saying the smartest thing I did was fire myself from the front of that boat and hire people who had a playbook to get to that type of revenue and to support them in every way I possibly could. Okay. Pratik,
Yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce your name. What's up? What question do you have?
Thanks. I wanted to check about when you decided to fire yourself. And bring someone in. How did you manage the overall control and making sure that the person who's coming in is the right fit and driving the startup in the right direction as you wanted, and not completely deviating from where you wanted to reach initially.
Yeah, so when you're a co-founder, or when you're a founder or CEO, when you're in that role, you can fire yourself but still be in charge, if that makes sense, right? So like you still set the vision, right? Like I'm not outsourcing the vision of the company and the direction of the company. I'm outsourcing the execution of a lot of stuff. So the first thing I would say is, when someone comes in and interviews, they have to be aligned to your vision. They're still reporting to you, but you can fire yourself as the head of marketing or the head of sales or the head of development and have someone actually run the execution and management of those teams. But they still have to align and follow you, right? The second thing I would say is, you know, I was a big proponent of look at their playbook. How confident are they in what they're going to do when they come? So in the interviews, I have to be like, what are you planning on doing? What does that look like? And they should open it up and be like, well, my sales strategy is we do this per manager, we do this many reps, we really like this style of marketing, blah, 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 blah. And like you're gonna hire them because you like what you hear. And again, obviously sometimes it doesn't work and you have to make those decisions and let them go or put them into a position that they can be successful at. But they're still underneath you. You don't need to be that controlling and hold everything because frankly, if you do, you won't be that successful. Okay. Let's move into things you can do to become a unicorn. So I'm going to actually skip that one. So I'm going to actually skip this. This is a slide. This is a set of slides I use, guys, for people that are really young, like in their careers, and they're looking to figure out what they can do to build a career that's successful. But you guys are founders, so I'm just going to bypass some of this. Okay, let's do this though. This actually goes into what we were just talking about, Pratik, with like what you should hire yourself for or not hire yourself for. All right. These are two polarizing figures. I can't wait to hear people's opinions. I'm so excited. We will not get into politics, but we will get into what is Elon's superpower? What is Taylor Swift's superpower? Who wants to answer that? What is the one thing they can't outsource because they are that good at it? What do you got?
Taylor
Vision?
Swift's right. What I mean,
Sorry. Okay, so Trevor said vision. Pratik, did you say something, or who are the other
Yeah.
people that said?
I said the same vision.
Okay, both of them, by the way. I think. Okay, so Andrew says that Taylor. I'm assuming when you say voice, Andrew, you're referring to Taylor. Grit. Gavin, do you mind going off speaker and tell me why you say grit?
Totally. I feel like Elon's famous for that staring into the abyss, eating glass line, and that just like symbolizes grit. And T Swift, I think she has that. Like she just shows up day in and day out with it.
Okay. Anything else? By the way, I don't think there's like a specific right or wrong answer. I mean, I have my answers, but anyone else have a thought on what is their superpower?
I think it's like
So-
they've always chose to do things like they're not like letting critics or people define that, right? Like Elon certainly both get a backlash for whatever reason, but both of them continue to do what they think is right for their fans, for their clients, anything like that.
But by the way, you know what's so incredibly powerful about that is like they're founders, right? Like Taylor Swift is a founder. I know she's an entertainer, but she's a founder. And what you just said is crazy. Taylor Swift's like, I'm gonna write the music that's in me. I know I have a vision of where I'm headed and the songs I'm gonna write, what I'm gonna do. And you cannot like the music, but you have to respect that she's evolved herself over multiple generations and that she's still relevant and she's not listening to critics. She's like, this is what we're building. And that is honestly the number one thing I would say as a founder. You cannot outsource vision. If you don't know where you're headed and what you're building, and you're not able to shut out the critics, but you're listening to every single stupid person on Twitter or person on LinkedIn, then you're a moron. And frankly, you shouldn't be running your company. A founder-led company is someone who's like, I know where we're headed, and it might sound crazy, and some people are going to chat and they're going to say that this is stupid, but I know where we're going. Almost every great company on the planet, to some degree, at some point was seen as super dumb. So my answer, obviously, you guys nailed it, but I want to tweak some stuff. So Elon is vision, right? I want to take people to space is like an insane statement, right? And then to backwards kind of create Starlink. And a lot of the things he does, it's like, it sounds insane, but he has a vision and he's like, this is where we're headed. And that is really, really powerful. People come to companies because of the CEO or founder being a visionary. They wanted to follow Steve Jobs for a reason, because Steve was taking them into the future, and they are willing to work the hours and the effort and execute because they love where you're headed and what they're building. And so when they tell their friends what's going on, they get excited because like, dude, you don't understand what we're building. That's something that's really powerful. The other thing is the thing with Taylor Swift, which I'm constantly impressed with, is like her ability to tell a story through writing. Again, I can't say I'm like Taylor Swift's #1 song fan, but she legitimately writes all of her own songs. How many artists do not do that? She controls her own narrative by writing her own songs and telling a story. And so she's able to be a storyteller. And frankly, as a CEO or founder, you are a storyteller. You are telling the story of your vision and where you're headed. That's how you recruit. That's how you sell. That's how you build. You have to be able to do these things. And so I would ask yourself as a founder, you don't have to have these, like, you don't have to be Taylor Swift or Elon in your styles or approach. But I would ask yourself, do I have a vision? Look yourself in the mirror, say the vision out loud. Where are we headed? And ask yourself, would you follow yourself, kind of as a dumb practice? And the second thing would be like, can I tell that story? Can I, with clarity, motivate people to come follow me as the Pied Piper to go execute that vision? And if you have that, you have a lot of chance to be successful. If you don't, then it can get very, very difficult. And I would suggest you should probably work for someone and not run your company. But all right, let's keep going. By the way, let's pause. Any questions there on just, for example, how to understand what your superpower is, where to outsource yourself, where to not outsource yourself? Any questions on this, or do we want to go to the next stage? Okay, so real quick, so I have an idea. We can't really take a poll, but maybe Brian, you can give me a sense. Is everyone here at the beginning of their founder journey, in the middle of their founder journey, or are they at the end of their founder journey and they're like thinking of selling right now?
We've got a good mix. I think we've had founders here that have, exited in the past and, are a completely different venture, different industry, mixture between product-based, service-based. So those that are also building agencies or consultancies in addition to your SaaS platform. But I would say most of us here in this journey are kind of maybe towards that middle/early stage, getting some product market fit, figuring out what it takes to scale. And obviously, if someone feels like they're in a different stage, please feel free to chime in as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go back then a couple slides. We're going to talk about product market fit and scale for a second, and then we're gonna come back to this. So, someone walks into my office. They want to raise money. Let's just, again, sorry, I'm asking open-ended questions, but look, I can ask whatever questions I want. So here we go. If someone comes in and they're early, this is like they want to raise money. It's the beginning of they either have built their product or early revenue. What two things as a venture capitalist do you think I care about the most? What am I looking at that early of a company? What matters? So I'd love the chats, but I'll kind of answer some. Is it their EBITDA? Is it their revenue? Is it their margins? Is it their unit economics? Is it their TAM? Is it like, what is it that matters when I meet someone and they say, we're very early, but here's what we've been doing. Here's what we're building. What matters the most?
Founders.
Kevin says, does it solve a problem? What, Pratik, what'd you say?
Founders.
Okay, founders is one. Before I get into any of the numbers or anything else in the business, I just want to look at the founders and say, and I asked 3 questions. This is just me. The first one's like, do I like them? Which is a weird thing to say, but we're going to get into the trenches together. So my first question is, do I like this person? Do I want to talk to this person? When the chips are up and the chips are down, do I want to talk to them? Do I trust this person? Do I feel like they're going to do the right thing for their investors, their team, do I trust them to execute? And the third is like, are they competent enough? Do I want to follow them? Would I go work for them? Like, that's a great question to ask myself when someone's coming in and asking for money. I'm like, would I work for this founder? And if the answer is like, yeah, then we can go solve a lot of problems on their numbers and EBITDAs and go to markets and stuff like that. If the answer is like, man, I love their product, I love their team, or no, sorry, I love their product, I love their TAM, but I don't like the founder, I'm out. So founders one. What's the other thing that matters? And this is, I think, almost the only thing that matters at the early stages. No one has said it yet. I'll give you guys like 10 seconds to see if someone.
Traction.
I think it's so close. It's adjacent to what you're saying, Michael, but no. Oh, there we go. There it is. There's that dented beetle. Okay. Product market fit, which is traction. I get, Michael, but there is a difference. So traction implies like, what's the revenue growth? What is that looking like? Like how many new customers, all signs of product market fit. But product market fit is everything. So we had a saying at Divvy. I'll give you guys 2 frameworks to think about this in your own company. We had a saying at Divvy and we said, look, are the dogs eating the hairy dog food? What we meant by that is like, obviously if my dog comes down and eats a steak, like my dog, like, by the way, loves, like if I cook meat, he's just like on my like leg, just like looking up, just waiting for a piece of steak. Cause it's good food. It's way better than the food he normally eats. Right. So clearly they're going to eat good food, but it's more important to ask, are they eating bad food? If my dog is going to eat the dog food that's gross and it's got hair in it, but he's just so hungry, that tells me that like that market or that dog, that market is so hungry for what I'm building that like, I don't have to be perfect for them to, I would agree, Gavin, steak does have product market fit. That you can make a lot of mistakes if you have product market fit and it's okay. So I'll give you an example. Our entire product was about having a Venmo-like experience inside of a company. So you had to set a budget and then your employees could see the budget and they could divvy it out amongst the team. Okay. Venmo it out amongst the team. When we first launched, you could do some things from your phone and some things from your computer, but not both. And it was like janky. I mean, it was bad. The dog food had hair in it. But for the first while, the dog food was freaking bad and people were gobbling it up because they're like, I know you have this issue, this issue, this issue, but like we desperately want the control. As a head of finance, I want the control. I want to stay in budget. That's super important to me. So that was indicative, and I've seen it a lot. I could give you some other examples, but when product market fit and the dogs are eating the hairy dog food, that is, you can make a ton of mistakes and have success. So that is extremely important. Here's another way that I gauge product market fit that hopefully will be helpful. Do I have any volunteers to do this exercise with me that has a company in which I could not pick on them, but I'm going to ask you some questions? Anyone want to go? Aya, you ready?
Sure. Let's go.
Hey, I call this the billboard theory. Okay. I live in Utah. We drive 90 miles on the freeway here. We're fast drivers. So there's billboards everywhere and there's fast drivers. So this is where the theory comes from. What do you do? Just for a second, so I understand. What's the company do?
A digital marketing agency, which is now shifting into like AI tools and technology.
Okay, awesome. Who is your target buyer?
Small businesses.
Who is your target buyer at the small business? Sorry, by the way, I'm just kidding. I'm going to keep drilling. So
Business
don't take
owners.
it. President and owners. What type of small businesses? Like, are there specific small businesses or are there any small business of a certain size?
Right now, any small business of a certain size between 2 and 10 million.
Okay. So it's the president of a company, of a small business doing 2 to 10 million in revenue.
Mhm.
Okay. What do you save them money, make them money, or save them time?
Make the money.
Okay. How do you make them money? Can you articulate on a billboard how you make them money?
Double their revenue in 6 months.
Okay. So you're telling me, Aya, hear me out. If I was driving on this freeway going 90 miles an hour and I saw something that says, if you're a small business doing 2 to 10 million in revenue, I could double your revenue in 6 months. Do you
Mhm.
think are you going to hit 100% of the people passing that billboard?
As in
Sorry.
like get their
That-
attention.
Bad phrasing. What I asked is like, my daughter driving down the road's not going to care when she sees that billboard. and that does not matter. But if
Yeah.
I have a small business between $2 and $10 million, and you're saying you can double my revenue in 6 months, do you think I might be at least intrigued?
Yeah.
So obviously you're then going to have to prove it. You're going to have to give me something more than that. Like, how are you going to do it? And what's required of me to get there? And we're going to have a conversation. But I have this conversation all the time where people are like, hey, we do digital agency, AI tools, for marketing. And they're like, and I go, who's the buyer? And they're kind of saying, well, it can be the marketer, or it can be the president, or it can be the general manager. What's the problem with that answer? Your answer was great. What's the problem with the answer I just gave?
It's just too many people. You
How do
just
you-
need to
How do
hire.
you build a product and market a product and speak to a product when there's 3 different personas? I'm not saying as you get bigger, you can't expand the persona chart, but then you have the revenues and stuff to justify going after different personas. But when you're a small company, clarity is key. And we had a guy come in, and he actually had a really cool technology. It was like a year and a half ago. He was like ahead of his time on AI recording meetings and summarizing them. And we're like, oh, this is cool. And I go, who's your target buyer? And he goes, oh, everyone. Head of product, head of sales, head of engineering, head CEO. And I was like, do you save them time, save them money, or save time, save money, or make money? What do you think's the worst answer of those 3?
Save time? No.
Trick question. All of the above. When they say all of them, I want to pull my hair out. Like, what are you talking about? That you can't do that. Because you also don't know your persona. Your persona, like ours at Divvy, wanted to have control. They wanted to save money. So yes, we could talk about how that made the money, and yes, how it saved them time. But at the end of the day, our persona wanted to save money. And there's clarity in saying, no, we do this for this person, and we know how they think, and we know what they want, right? So a small business owner wants to double their revenue. And this billboard theory, if everyone on this call, if you ask yourself like, oh no, I can do a lot of things, I would challenge yourself to create a billboard on a piece of paper and say, who's my target market? Am I going to save them money, make them money, or save them time? And then how do I tell them that that's what I'm going to do for them in like a sentence that I could see when I'm driving on a freeway? And if you go through that exercise enough, you'll have a sense of if you have product market fit. Because look, a lot of businesses, especially service-oriented businesses, have some measure of success before they really know what product market fit feels like and their persona feels like, because they're just doing a lot of stuff for some people that have hired them. But you really should challenge yourself to have clarity in who you're going after, why you're going after them, and that will allow you to scale and get significantly bigger. Otherwise, you'll end up taking on clients that you don't want, and you'll end up marketing in places you don't want, and it becomes very inefficient. And frankly, as a small company, you just can't afford the inefficiency. Okay, are we all good on those 2, product market fit, billboard stuff?
Yeah. Ours is even narrower, like women-owned businesses. Yeah. So
That's better. You're like small business women owners. We will double your revenue in 6 months. Like, hey, I love it. They're going to call you. Okay. Let's go forward. I'll cover this fairly quickly because I know a lot of people aren't there yet, but I do want you to think about this at this stage because you are headed there. So I want to first clarify, I'm, building this nonprofit, et cetera, but I really do think building is the most noble thing you can do. Building a business is like creating jobs. It's creating value. It's giving you, money for your family and all the things that you need. So I'm not a guy who's like building businesses, this evil necessary, and doing a charity is the goal for all humans. I would argue, and I have this conversation all the time, that Bill Gates did way more good for the world in creating Microsoft than he did in creating his nonprofit and giving away $200 billion. And if you'd like to challenge that, call me after and we'll have a nice long conversation about the impact of personal computers on the world. So where do you think happiness comes? Right? I said at the beginning of my journey here on the far left, it was like the most fun I'd ever had. Like just the energy of that time was so fun. In these early stages, like we're right here. I'm going to draw this, right? We're right in that middle and it's like the team's building, your product's hitting. It's like, oh man, like the energy's coming. Then there's this stage at the end right? Where you're just, it's getting close. You see the success, it's happening. And then obviously the next slide, we're going to talk about the point of the mountain where you reach the summit. Where does happiness come from? Where's the most exciting, happiest part?
The overall journey of reaching from start to beginning.
Yeah. Someone else said process. My answer to this is going to be, I actually can't tell you, but my hope is that you don't look at it like, hold on, I got to get rid of this. Stop annotating. My hope is that you don't think it's this. I think there's a lot of people who think I'm going to go through the crap. I'm going to make the sacrifices. I'm going to do everything I need to do because I'm going to get to the top of that mountain. And when I get to the top of the mountain, I'm going to get money. I can go sit on a beach and I can stop doing what everyone's telling me to do. And I'm going to be happy. And I just think that that's a really dangerous way of thinking, because I'm going to give you some stories and examples of how that's not the case, and how, frankly, the end of the journey or the peak of the mountain is very exciting. But right as you step off of it, and right as you move past that, there's a lot of emotional challenges that I think people aren't prepared for. And so my point is like, when I sold, I'll give you an example of this. When I sold Divvy, we sold on Tuesday. I left on Thursday or something like that. It was like right after. And I was like, I'm out. Don't call me, email me, whatever. First couple weeks, first couple months, honestly, were great. My body needed to de-stress. I needed to be with my kids and my wife, and we went on some fun trips and spent time with family. All that was great. Pretty soon, I started to feel some feelings I wasn't expecting, which was, I miss my friends at work. I loved working with them. I loved seeing them every day and building something with them. I miss the challenge. I know right now I can play golf every day and eat food, but man, that's not fulfilling. I was going to bed not feeling fulfilled because I missed building something. I no longer had my identity. I was no longer the founder of Divvy. I was now just a guy. And it's not bad, but it was hard for me to process. For years, I'd received this attention for being this co-founder, and it was that was my identity. And I received, apparently, which I hadn't realized, a lot of energy from being that co-founder. It was no longer there, and that was hard for me to do or understand. So if you're not happy at the beginning or the middle or the later stage of the process, it's not going to change on the end. And so you should reevaluate what you're doing and how you bring more happiness or energy into your life, and we can talk through that a lot. But I think it is very dangerous when people think, oh, I'll get to the mountain. I wrote a book called Factory for Good. In the process of writing the book, I interviewed hundreds of successful people, and I basically asked them how to be happy. And the three things I found from them were, you need purpose. And when you sell your company, you do lose a lot of purpose, and you can go find it again, but you will now have to go through a journey of finding your purpose again. And that's not as easy as people think. The second thing, and the most important thing, and sometimes in entrepreneurship, we sacrifice this, relationships. If you don't have relationships, I like to say this phrase, there are a lot of rich people out there, but the wealthiest people have relationships. Being rich is having money. Being wealthy is having relationships. And I think people significantly underestimate that that's actually all that's important. And I've seen this, and I promise it, you can choose not to believe me. Some of the saddest people I know are the people that are on their private plane by themselves. And trust me, it's a very lonely game. And they're very lonely, and they wish they would have made some other decisions, and the money wasn't as important as they thought. And the third thing is legacy, which I define as impact on the world around us, how we improve the lives of our family, our friends, our community, and the world at large, and that we can leave a legacy of doing good, which is the whole concept of Factory for Good. Look, I love for people to come join us. I definitely don't make money doing this. I love doing it. I have a passion for it. I think the smartest people in the world are you, business owners and founders. And at some point, when you finish your journey as a founder, I want you to change your factory from printing money and retool it to print good. And I would love to take you through a process of what we do to help people kind of build their own factory for good and create a legacy of impacting the world. And we have a goal for enough people to join us that we go and change the lives of 1 million people. And it's been a super fun journey that I'm on right now. And this has become my purpose and thing that I love to do. So that's Factory for Good. You can go to the newsletter. You can go to factoryforgood.com. But we'd love you come check us out. Andrew.
And actually, sorry, I think
question.
Andrew's got a question that I got a comment after.
Yeah, I just loved you put them as kind of two different things, kind of printing money and printing good. But your example of Bill Gates was he did more good printing money than he did kind of starting the charity. So talk about kind of the integration of those two and finding good in both.
It's a great question. So, okay, actually, let me give you one story of another person that I respect. So I actually call this guy and I'm doing the interview and I'm like, hey, what have you done good? What have you done bad? How would you do it again? And I say, why are you still working? Right? Like he's doing his real estate business. And he literally says to me, he goes, Alex, my superpower is making money. And I was like, well, that's kind of cocky. I kind of liked what it, but I was also like, well, that's a little, strong. And he goes, no, but hear me out. He goes, look, my son had an addiction problem and I'm good at making money. So I work because we as a family are opening up rehab centers across our state because like the money we get allows us as a family to go then help hire, build, construct these rehab facilities. And I think they have 2 or 3 that they are like, paying for. And so he continues to work to create opportunities for his employees and things like that. But he's like, I'm working because if I can make more money, I can build more rehab facilities. And that's what our family's about. So I actually know a bunch of people that are still working and making money, but it's a mindset of my mountain that I'm climbing is money. So for example, when I was in my 20s and for a majority of the world, I totally get that this is the mindset and I agree with it. You have to make money to provide shelter and safety and food and all those things. But what I'm suggesting is at some point, if you are lucky enough and successful enough and smart enough, or whatever you want to phrase it, to have enough money to cover the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I want you to shift the mindset of like, all right, what good can I do in the world? And if that involves with you staying at Microsoft and making money, but then you can go and you have a good product, that's great. But if you can just make sure that you, your spouse, your family, you guys are rallying and doing what you do so that you can produce some output of good in the world, I think that that's the equation we're looking for. And that's what I'm trying to motivate founders to do. Hopefully that makes a little sense.
Yep.
The
And
QR
then,
code's expired.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to use it to join the newsletter. I love the idea, but it looks like it's expired.
Go to factoryforgood.com, Michael, and it's easy to join the newsletter from there.
I'm a member of this group on LinkedIn, PEF, and you may want to think about it. Previously exited founders, and they had.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah.
So they had. Were you at the Sahil Bloom event 2 days ago?
No, but I love Sahil's book. I think it's. I was actually mad when he wrote it because I was like, dang it, that's I wanted to say that. Like I thought he did a really good job.
But he did say something. He's working on the West Coast, big job, wife, kid, the whole thing. And a good friend of his asked him, how you doing? And then finally said, hey, do you visit your parents on the East Coast? He goes, yeah, once a year. His parents are like 65 or something. So the guy said to him, you realize that you're going to see your mom and dad only 15 more times in your life at this rate. And that hit him so hard that he quit his job, sold his house, and moved to the East Coast and started writing, wrote a bestseller, now sees his dad 25 times. So, people are trying to earn money and focus only on money, but they forget about their health, their wife or their spouse or their family or their kids, and had horrible relationships, but made a lot of money. And what good does that do you? So he's a prime example of it.
So I love Sahil's story. In my book, what I actually tell this story at the beginning, because this is why I wrote the book. I grew up in the family of entrepreneurs, like I said. My great grandpa was an amazing guy, built a great business, but he really focused on building a community and serving in his church and having a family. And my grandpa took over his business. He was very, very, very successful in the 70s. So this is freaking 50 years ago. But he was very wealthy in the 70s. His mountain, we called it Money Mountain. It was just like his focus was making more money. And I'm not against making money, but what happened is I saw this through in my family where, money became this powerful force where people were like, well, what am I getting? What am I consuming? And relationships started getting strained and divorces started happening. And there was suicides from addictions. And there's, when the estate comes out and my step grandma takes all the money and then people are like, then they're fighting. They never talk to each other again. Like I saw relationships get totally destroyed because money is such a powerful force and it can do a lot of good things, like build your own factory, but it can do a lot of powerfully negative things. And this is a clarion call if I'm trying to tell people, I'm like, look, I'm not against money. I love building businesses, but I have seen money ruin families and ruin relationships to the point where they're devastating. And it's really sad. And I think that there is a way to achieve success and make it a positive for yourself, for your family, and for the people around you, and then the world at large. And that's largely what we're trying to say, is trying to help people avoid the calamity of my family, in which money was the subject, and now then it's not. And that's what I'm gonna do.
Well said. Thank you.
Tiffany.
I have a questions regarding the journey because I am the first in my family to be an entrepreneur, and I seem to really just when you touch on the family part, I did not learn the entrepreneur skills from my family, so I seem to have a bigger gap with my mom, who used to be my best friend, and my mom is in her 60s. So, how do you go about growing as an entrepreneur and still having that connection with your family? That's one side of the questions. The other side of the question is, how do you grow as an entrepreneur with the right mentors?
Ooh, okay, let's put mentors to the side for a second. I want to come back to that. What is creating the gap between you and your mom? Is it like, is there some resentment with success, or is it like just time? Like there's no time there. What's just creating a little bit of that gap?
Let's say I'm fearless and she's fearful. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, that's really
I'm,
interesting.
I'm willing to try, explore, sky's not the limits for me, for example, but she doesn't want to get on the plane. I'm just giving you examples.
Yeah, no, this is great. One of the things I have found is like, I'm gonna, I'll see if people get this joke. We're gonna run with it. Have you guys ever seen The Office with Michael Scott? There's a scene where he's in the car and he's talking about business, and there's a famous quote from The Godfather that says, it's not personal, it's business. Michael Scott says, it's actually the most personal thing in the world. The joke there that I actually think there's this underlying truth is it's way more emotional and personal than we think, because it does affect relationships and the people we spend time with. There can be, for example, for me, working the hours I was working, building Divvy and some of this other stuff, it was like, oh, I'm spending 5 times as much time with my partner, my founder, than I am my spouse. I mean, it's like you start to run the numbers and you're like, oh, wow. And my wife's great and we work through it, but there's times where there can be resentment and there can be gaps. And I have a twin brother, by the way, who I love, but we're not super close. And a lot of it is, well, we are different, but like he's not doing so well financially and he's having a hard time finding work. And I'm obviously have done well enough. I've had success and he's seen it. And just the sheer, I've had success and he hasn't, has created this divide where it's like a bridge we have a hard time walking over. And frankly, it emotionally is taxing on both of us, like for me and for him. And, so I would say like, it's okay that it's not easy. That's expected. That happens. I've also seen it a lot, Tiffany, where it is kind of this funny thing where like my spouse hates change or like has a hard time taking big risk, and I'm a big risk taker. And so sometimes it is like this conversation of like, well, wait, what? Like I do this and she would do that. And it obviously, some of it's probably just open communication. Like, and I don't know your situation. I'm giving you an example. I'll say 2 elements of this. One, for me and my kids, one of the things I did to make sure that I didn't lose my family as I did Divvy is I created times. Before 8 a.m. was my time. So golf, mountain biking, whatever I wanted to do. If I wanted to do that, I had to wake up early and go to the gym. From 8 to 6 p.m. was work. I was at work. That's what it was. Don't ask me to attend a child's thing. Don't ask me to, I'm at work. You can call me obviously, maybe, but I'm at work. From 6 to 9, I'd get home, I'd have dinner, I'd be a dad, I'd be a husband, and I'd do my best to like be present. And then from 9 to 1, I was back on my computer in my room, like working, and I would go in and out and I'd put the kids to sleep and stuff. But like largely, like I was kind of back at work at night. But at least it created a rhythm of I could still spend the time and hours I needed at work to successfully launch Divvy. But it also gave me like buffers of like, hey, if it means that you have to go to lunch with your mom, you're like, Mom, I'm super busy, but let's do lunch every Tuesday. Like I'll put that in my calendar to be with you. And that gives us the time to connect. Whatever it's the right thing for you, make sure you maintain those relationships. Because again, using my grandpa as an example, which he was a great person. He was working so much. If you talk to like my dad's like, I idolized my dad. So grandpa. But I never got to see him, never got to be around him. And our relationship deteriorated over the years. And he was like, it was really sad. Like my dad was really sad when he watched his dad die, he's like, I wanted a relationship, but didn't get it because my grandpa was so busy making money. And I think just try to put some stuff in place. The second thing I would say is communication. Like if you feel like something that's happening at your work is creating a divide, look that person in the eye. And there's a whole other thing that's on Factory for Good. And by the way, Brian, are we ending in 11 just time-wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's officially ends at 11, so people are welcome to obviously leave. But if you have more time
Okay.
and we have questions, you're welcome to certainly stick around.
I'll finish this. We'll do one more question. We'll try to wrap up. On Factory for Good, Tiffany, we have something called the ABCs of relationships. What we talk about, and one of the powerful things is ultimately you got to write down who your circle A's are. And the circle A's are the people that are the most important to you, people that you would take a bullet for, you would literally die for. Okay. I'm assuming your mom is on that list. Is that fair? Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to look your mom in the eye and I want you to go to her. And there's a whole thing on the Factory you can go check out, but basically say, Mom, I want you to know you're my circle A. I would literally take a bullet for you. I love you more than like anyone else in this world. How would you rate our relationship right now? And she's going to give you a number. That number will be somewhere between 7, 8, 9, and 10 is my guess, unless it's fractured. So she'll say 8 or 7 or something. Doesn't matter. She'll say it. And you'll be like, thank you. I want you to know that you mean so much to me. I want to know how to get that more to a 10. How do I get that to a 10? Whatever she says, you're going to say, how do I get that to a 10? What it allows is for a conversation to take place where she says, like, I would love to spend more time with you, or I would love to understand what you're doing, or she's going to explain herself, and you can be there to say, you are the most important person or one of in the world. And it creates an opportunity for you to connect and try to work through, like, look, I'm going to build my business and I have a lot of stuff. I need your help. I can't have you dragging me down. Like, this is hard enough on its own. I need you in my corner. And you can have that conversation and hopefully in a productive way. So I would say, go try that. Does that work? Okay. Last question. Anyone got a last question?
Hi, Alex. So we are first-time founders, and we have started building something in a very important area in life sciences, which is cancer. I mean, we are also matured founders. Like we've started building in our 40s, both our founders being in this first startup. Could you advise what would be the good time to say no? Now, this is the right time to say it's not working.
How do I know if the company's not working? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. How do we know that this is it? We have to say either we have to say pack up from now.
So life sciences is like a tough answer for me because I don't know the flow of it. So I'm just going to answer it in a way that I understand, because I know that life sciences is a more like you can like hit the right cure and all of a sudden you're worth $1 trillion, right? It's more like that. But in my world of just any businesses you're going to go to market and sell, I would say, are the dogs eating the dog food? And I would say, like, you have to legitimately ask yourself, where is product market fit in our company? Do we have it? And if you don't, and there's some easy ways to understand this, like if it's not obvious that a round peg and a round hole, they're not just coming, then you have to say, like, why? And go back to the billboard theory and be like, what are we building for this person? And do they actually want that? And if you don't have product market fit, then you're back at square one, essentially. And you need to say, okay, hold on, what are we building and for who? And ask yourself, do you think that they want it? If you feel like you have product market fit and you really feel that, then you should move heaven and hell to make it happen. Do everything you can to hold on and keep going. If you truly believe that product market fit is there and the market wants it, you just haven't delivered it yet. So it could be tricky. It's a fine line, but I would really try to go through that test. And by the way, the other answer is, if this is like destroying, if you're losing all of your money, or if it's really taking your family down with you, then the things that are more important than your business, then yeah, you probably should take a step back and say, wait a minute, it's not going to be worth it. So, all right, let's do that. Thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
Yep, Alex, thanks again. Is there any way, LinkedIn, if someone has a follow-up question, is there a best way to kind of reach out or get in touch? Or
LinkedIn's great. Myself or my assistant will grab it at some point. So just LinkedIn's great, but come check us out on Factory. I release a lot of this content every Friday, and would love to have you listen.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Alex. Thanks all for joining. We appreciate this has been recorded, and so we'll send that out, and enjoy the rest of your Thursdays.
And guys,
Thank you.
for our next event. Thank you. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.